My stepsister was jealous no one cared about her pregnancy. Now she's telling everyone I'm mentally unstable to steal the spotlight. My family started believing her lies. Until I exposed the truth at a family dinner and everything blew up right there at the table. Marla sat in the quiet corner of the library, her nose buried in the latest health and wellness book for expecting mothers. Her baby bump, now pronounced at 7 months, was a gentle reminder of the life growing inside her. The soft glow of the pendant lamp cast a warm light on her freckled cheeks as she meticulously read through the pages, her finger tracing the words that emphasized the importance of a balanced diet during pregnancy. A few loose strands of her auburn hair had escaped her ponytail, dancing gently in the cool air conditioning. Her mind drifted to the weekend's family gathering. Dana, her stepsister, had been there, as usual, with her 1-year-old daughter in tow. Dana had always been the center of attention, even before Marla's pregnancy. Her laughter was infectious, her energy boundless, and she had a way of making people feel welcome. Yet, there was a darker side to her, one that had been festering since Marla had shared her own happy news. Marla had noticed the subtle glances at her plate, the not-so-subtle comments about her weight, and the whispers that grew louder each time she passed on certain foods. It started small, a joke here, a concerned look there, but it grew into something more sinister as the months went by. Dana had become obsessed with Marla's pregnancy, scrutinizing every bite she took and every pound she gained. The tension had reached a boiling point when Marla declined a serving of their grandmother's famous tuna spread. The room had fallen silent, all eyes on her as she politely explained her doctor's advice about avoiding raw fish and eggs. Dana had rolled her eyes dramatically, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. "See? She's starving herself. It's not good for the baby." The accusation stung, especially coming from someone who had been showered with love and support during her own pregnancy. Marla felt the weight of her decision as she stood up from the table, her husband placing a comforting hand on her back. She looked around at the faces of her family, some shocked, others sympathetic. Her grandmother's eyes filled with tears, and she could see the hurt in her stepmother's gaze. But she knew she had to stand up for herself, for her baby. "I'm sorry," she said firmly, "but I can't be around someone who makes me feel this way." Her husband, a tall, stoic man named Alex, took her hand and led her out of the room. They walked down the hallway, the sound of their footsteps echoing off the old, wooden floorboards. "I've had enough," Marla said through gritted teeth. "Her behavior is toxic, and I won't let it affect my baby." Alex nodded, his eyes filled with understanding and support. They stepped into the cool evening air, leaving the cacophony of the party behind. The drive home was quiet, the weight of the evening pressing down on them. When they arrived, Marla felt a sense of relief wash over her as she sank into their comfortable couch. Alex wrapped his arms around her, and she could feel the warmth of his love and support. They sat in silence for a moment before he spoke. "I know it's hard, but you did the right thing. You and the baby come first." The next few days were a mix of emotions. Marla's mother called, her voice filled with worry and confusion, asking her to consider giving Dana another chance. But Marla remained steadfast. She had drawn her line in the sand, and she wasn't about to let anyone cross it. Meanwhile, she continued to follow her doctor's advice, eating well and exercising regularly. She focused on the joy of her pregnancy, the flutter of her baby's movements, and the anticipation of their little boy's arrival. But the peace didn't last. Dana's texts began to flood in, each one more desperate than the last. "Please, talk to me. I'm worried about you," she pleaded. Then came the accusations. "You're ruining our family," she wrote. "Everyone's taking sides, and it's all because you can't handle a little criticism." Marla deleted the messages without responding, her resolve unwavering. She knew she had made the right choice for herself and her son. As the weeks passed, the family gatherings grew smaller, the tension palpable whenever Dana's name was mentioned. The occasional card or gift arrived from her mother, but there was no direct contact. Marla's due date grew closer, and the anticipation grew stronger. Yet, with every passing day, the shadow of Dana's accusations lingered, a reminder of the complex web of relationships and loyalties that had been stretched to their breaking point. One evening, as Marla sat in her cozy living room, her swollen feet propped up on a velvet pillow, her stepmother's call came through. The line was filled with a heavy silence before she spoke. "Marla, sweetie, your grandma's been asking about you. She misses you at the gatherings." There was a pause, filled with unspoken hope. Marla's grip tightened around her phone, her thumb tracing the smooth plastic. "I miss her too," she said softly, "but I can't pretend everything's okay when it's not." Her stepmother sighed. "Dana's just trying to be helpful," she offered, her voice a mix of pleading and defensiveness. Marla's eyes flashed with frustration. "No," she said firmly. "Dana's trying to control me. I've talked to her. I've explained. And she won't stop. If she's unhappy, it's because she can't accept that I know what's best for my baby and me." The line went quiet again before her stepmother spoke. "Okay," she said, her voice small. "I understand. But please, don't let this come between us all." Marla's heart softened, and she took a deep breath. "I don't want that either," she conceded. "But I can't keep letting her make me feel guilty." The conversation ended with a promise to think things over, but Marla knew she wouldn't back down. Her priority was her son, and she had to protect him, even from the toxic energy that seemed to seep in from outside their bubble of serenity. The days grew longer and hotter as summer approached, and Marla's pregnancy grew more uncomfortable. But the warmth of her husband's love and the support of her immediate family was a balm to her soul. They attended baby showers thrown by her friends, showering her with gifts and well wishes, and she felt a sense of belonging and excitement that had been missing from her interactions with her extended family. One morning, as the first light of dawn painted the sky a soft pink, Marla's water broke. The contractions started soon after, a rhythmic crescendo that grew stronger with every passing moment. Alex was by her side, his eyes wide with excitement and a hint of fear, as they rushed to the hospital. In the delivery room, surrounded by the calm efficiency of the medical staff, Marla felt a sudden pang of regret. Her family was fractured, and her son's arrival was bringing more drama than joy. But as she pushed through the pain and finally held her baby boy in her arms, she knew she had made the right choice. Looking into his tiny, perfect face, she made a silent vow. Her son would never know the bitterness that had tainted her relationship with Dana. He would grow up in a world filled with love, acceptance, and respect for boundaries. And as she cradled him, feeling his warmth against her chest, she realized that she had already won the most important battle of all, the battle to protect her child from the shadows of the past. But fate had other plans. 2 weeks after giving birth, Marla received a mysterious envelope in the mail. Inside was an old, yellowed photograph of her mother and Dana's mother, looking young and carefree. On the back was a handwritten note, the ink faded but legible. It was from her mother, revealing a secret she had kept hidden for years. Dana's mother had struggled with severe postpartum depression and had been cruel to Dana after her birth, something that had never been talked about in the family. The note ended with an apology for not having been there for Dana and a plea for Marla to understand. Marla felt the earth shift beneath her as she pieced together the puzzle of Dana's obsession with her pregnancy. It was no longer about competition or jealousy but rather a desperate attempt to prevent history from repeating itself. The weight of the revelation sat heavily on her shoulders as she stared at the photograph, her thoughts racing. She knew she had to confront Dana, not with anger but with empathy and truth. Summoning her courage, Marla picked up the phone and called her stepsister. The conversation was tense, each word measured and cautious. She shared the story her mother had confided in her voice shaking with emotion. Dana was silent for a long moment before she spoke, her voice tight with unshed tears. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I just didn't want you to go through what I did." The silence grew thick with unspoken words, filled with years of misunderstanding and pain. Then, as if a dam had broken, Dana began to talk. She spoke of her mother's harsh criticisms and her own fears of becoming a mother, how she had projected those fears onto Marla in an attempt to control the narrative. Marla listened, her heart breaking for Dana, for the little girl who had been so desperately seeking love and validation. And for the first time, she saw beyond the jealousy and the accusations to the woman who had been hurt, who had grown up feeling less than. She understood that Dana's behavior was a cry for help, a plea to be seen and heard. With a deep breath, Marla offered her hand, not to hold on to anger but to bridge the gap that had grown between them. "We can get through this together," she said, "for the sake of our children, and for the sake of our own healing." Dana's voice was tentative, hopeful. "Do you think we can?" Marla's reply was firm. "I know we can." And with that, the beginnings of a new chapter unfolded, one of potential understanding and growth. The two sisters decided to meet, to share their stories and their fears, and to begin the journey of rebuilding their relationship, not as rivals but as allies in the complex tapestry of family and motherhood. The day of the meeting arrived, the tension palpable as they sat in a quiet cafe, the only sound the clinking of coffee cups. Dana looked at Marla with a vulnerability she had never seen before, her eyes red from crying. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean to hurt you." Marla reached across the table and took her hand. "I know," she said gently, "and I'm sorry for not seeing what you were going through." They talked for hours, sharing stories of their childhoods, their fears, and their hopes for their children. It was raw and painful, but it was also the most honest conversation they had ever had. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the cafe, they stood up, each holding their babies close. They were different now, forever changed by the truth that had been laid bare. The path ahead was not without its challenges, but they faced it together, united by a bond stronger than blood, the bond of motherhood. The months that followed were not without their moments of tension, but the air had shifted. Dana's obsessions had lessened, and Marla had learned the art of setting firm boundaries without cutting ties. The family gatherings grew more harmonious, with laughter and love replacing the whispers and accusations of before. And as the two women watched their children play together, a sense of peace settled over them. They had survived the storm, and their families had emerged stronger for it. But fate had one more twist in store. During a routine checkup, Marla's pediatrician noticed something peculiar about her baby boy's eyes, a striking shade of blue that was not present in her or Alex's family. A simple DNA test later revealed that her son had inherited a rare genetic trait from Dana's side of the family. The news shook them both, a stark reminder of the ties that bound them together despite the years of tension. Marla felt a swell of emotions, fear, anger, and a strange sense of connection she hadn't anticipated. This was something she had never wanted, a piece of Dana in her perfect little boy. But as she held him close, she saw the innocence in his gaze and knew she could not blame him for the actions of his aunt. The revelation forced them to confront the past and navigate an unexpected shared future. Dana, for her part, was overwhelmed with guilt, feeling as though she had passed down something undesirable. Marla, ever the pragmatist, knew that this was a chance for them to grow, to learn from each other, and to support one another as they raised their children. They decided to meet once more, this time with their mother in tow, to discuss the implications of this genetic bond. The conversation was fraught with emotion as they sat around the kitchen table, the same table that had hosted countless family dinners and the birth of so many resentments. But today, the air was thick with a new kind of tension, one tinged with hope and a willingness to understand. Dana spoke of her mother's struggle, the loneliness she had felt, and the fear that had driven her to be so critical. Marla listened with a newfound empathy, realizing that Dana's obsession with her pregnancy was not just about weight but about fear of losing control. Their mother, now a grandmother to both children, sat quietly, her eyes brimming with tears. She had never meant for her secret to cause such pain, never intended for her daughters to be pitted against each other. With a trembling hand, she reached out to both of them. "You're all I have," she said. "You and these precious babies." Marla and Dana exchanged a look, the anger between them dissipating like mist in the morning sun. They realized that despite everything, they were family, and their children were a living testament to the strength and resilience that flowed through their veins. They had been given an opportunity to break the cycle of pain and build a new legacy, one of love, support, and acceptance. Together, the three of them made a pact to put aside their differences, to be there for each other, and to ensure that their children knew the truth of their heritage. They would face the future with open hearts, ready to tackle whatever challenges it brought. The genetic trait that had once been a source of division now served as a bridge, connecting them in a way they had never anticipated. And as they watched their children giggle and reach for each other, they knew that this was the beginning of something beautiful. Marla, feeling the need for a new outlet to channel her emotions, stumbled upon an unexpected talent for painting. In the quiet hours of the night, when her baby slept, she would escape to the small art studio she had set up in the corner of her bedroom. The strokes of her brush became a dance, the colors a symphony that told the story of her heart. Her canvases grew crowded with images of love, hope, and the fierce protectiveness of a mother. As her son grew, so did her art. She painted scenes from her pregnancy, the joy of his birth, and the moments of frustration and fear she had experienced along the way. Each brushstroke was a whisper of emotion, a shout of triumph. Her paintings grew bolder, more vibrant, as if the act of creation was a form of healing. One evening, while scrolling through social media, Marla saw an advertisement for a local art show that focused on the work of mothers. On a whim, she decided to submit a few of her paintings. To her surprise, she was accepted. The thought of sharing her deeply personal work with strangers was terrifying, but she knew it was a step she had to take. The night of the art show arrived, and Marla felt a mix of excitement and dread. The walls of the small gallery were adorned with the works of mothers from all walks of life, each piece telling a story of love and struggle. As people filtered in, she watched as they paused before her paintings, their eyes lingering on the raw emotion she had poured onto the canvas. To her shock, her family, including Dana, had come to support her. They crowded around her, their eyes filled with pride and something else, understanding. Dana took her aside, her own baby on her hip. "I see it now," she said softly. "The way you love him. The way you've always loved. It's beautiful, Marla. Truly beautiful." The show was a success, and Marla's work was met with praise and admiration. Her paintings spoke to the hearts of the viewers, resonating with their own experiences of motherhood. And as her family gathered around her, the tension that had once divided them now seemed a distant memory. The art had become a catalyst for healing, a way to express the unspoken and unite the fragmented pieces of their lives. In the end, The most surprising revelation of all was that the talent she had discovered during her pregnancy had not only brought her peace, but had also become a bridge to mend the fractured bonds of her family. It was a legacy she would cherish, one that she hoped would extend beyond her own children to theirs, and to generations to come. Marla's art career grew from a therapeutic hobby to a full-blown passion as her paintings began to sell. Her vivid depictions of motherhood resonated with a deeper truth that seemed to resonate with everyone who saw them. Encouraged by her success, she decided to invite her mother and Dana to participate in a collaborative exhibition. The idea was simple yet profound. Each of them would create art that reflected their own unique experiences of motherhood. The three women worked tirelessly in the weeks leading up to the exhibition. Their mother, who had always had a penchant for photography, captured moments of love, sacrifice, and joy in her poignant black-and-white photographs. Dana, who had inherited her mother's flair for drama, crafted sculptures that reflected the tumultuous emotions of her own postpartum journey. And Marla, ever the painter, poured her heart onto the canvas, creating scenes that celebrated the beauty and complexity of her own motherhood. The night of the exhibition was a whirlwind of activity. The gallery was packed with people eager to see the work of the three generations of women who had been through so much. The walls were adorned with a tapestry of emotion, each piece telling a story of hope and healing. There was something magical in the air, a sense of unity that transcended the years of misunderstanding and pain. Marla watched as visitors moved from one piece to the next, their eyes lingering on the raw honesty captured in each brushstroke, each sculpted line. Her heart swelled with pride as she saw her mother and Dana standing side by side, their heads tilted in thoughtful contemplation as they discussed their art. For the first time in years, they seemed at peace, connected by the very thing that had once divided them. The exhibition was a resounding success, not just in terms of sales but in the hearts and minds of those who visited. It was a testament to the power of art to heal, to connect, and to communicate the unspoken. As they stood together, surrounded by their creations, Marla knew that they had come a long way from the tense dinner parties and accusatory whispers of the past. They had found a way to navigate the choppy waters of family dynamics, and it was all thanks to the little lives they had brought into the world. The three women, once at odds, had become a team, each supporting the other in their own way. They had turned their pain into something beautiful, and in doing so, had created a legacy that went beyond their own healing. It was a symbol of the strength of motherhood, of the unbreakable bond that tied them together through blood and love. And as they stood there, basking in the glow of their success, Marla couldn't help but think of the future. Of the days when their children would grow old enough to understand the journey they had taken together. Of the moments when they would look back at these artworks and see not just the struggles of their past, but the beauty of the present and the promise of the future. It was a legacy of love, woven into the very fabric of their family's story.